Sinn Féin's motion tonight calls on government to reverse your decision and to extend the eviction ban. And I'm asking every TD to think very, very carefully about renters in their constituency and to protect them by voting in favour of the motion. Taoiseach, should you proceed with this cruel decision, well then my question still stands. Where are those people facing eviction from April the 1st meant to go?
Thanks, Deputy. As was always the case, whether it was 6 months ago before the moratorium was in place, or a year ago, or 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, it does depend on everyone's individual circumstances. It's not the case that every notice to quit turns into an eviction, and it's not the case that every eviction turns into somebody living in emergency accommodation. So, while you're conflating the three things together, and I don't think it's accurate to do so, some people will find alternative accommodation, others will need to rely on the state to help them find accommodation, and that's the way it would have been 6 months ago before this moratorium existed. It's the way it would have been 3 years ago. It's the way it would be in February or March if you had your way and extended the eviction ban until then. This was a temporary measure. It was only put in place for the winter period, and it will end on a phased basis from the end of March of this year. Unfortunately, when it was in place, it didn't reduce the number of homeless people in government-provided emergency accommodation, precisely because there are so many other factors at play when it comes to the number of people who are homeless. Lots of different reasons why people become homeless, including family breakdown, for example, and then lots of different reasons why it's difficult to lift people out of homelessness, although we are doing that all the time. What it did do is provide time, provide tenants with a number of additional months to find alternative accommodation where that's possible, and also provide the government with time. And we did use that time. Over 6,000 new social houses built in the last quarter of the year, and also extra emergency accommodation provided if it's needed. It did also cause problems, and these are real problems which shouldn't be dismissed. People not able to move into the property that they own, people coming home from abroad, 30,000 people every year, citizens come home from abroad, some of them unable to move back into the homes that they rented out before they left. People who bought properties, often for their children to live in if they went to college, not being able to do that in September, which is what you're proposing. It also pushed more landlords into leaving the sector, and I believe it discourages new landlords from coming in as well, all making the supply situation, which is at the heart of this crisis, all the more worse. And the plan from Sinn Féin is clear, and I've read your motion, and I don't think it's a good one. And I would ask people to consider reading. Well, I know they'll read it, but to consider carefully the motion before they vote for it if they choose to do so. What you're proposing is to continue a ban on people being able to move back into their own properties, people being allowed to move children or family members back into their own properties. You've put in no exemption for that in your motion. And you're also saying that we should extend it until January because you believe that things can be made fundamentally different in such a short period. The truth is it would probably just make matters worse then than they are now. And you'd see a situation where you might see even more landlords choosing to sell up. And I think that would be a mistake, or you discourage more landlords from coming in. And simply kicking the can down the road, Deputy, is not a housing policy, in my view. The solution to this is a different one. It's more social housing, which we're doing. It's the tenant in situ scheme, which we're doing. It's more supply, such as through Crecona and changes to the fair deal. It's tax changes to encourage more landlords to stay in and more to re-enter, and also it's increasing funding for homeless prevention. And we agreed in the counter motion today a number of things. We agreed that there would be a tax package in the budget for small landlords, and that will take effect this year to encourage them to stay in and to enter the sector. And this was after consultations with our parliamentary party and some of the independent groups as well. We've agreed to extend the Crecona refurbishment grant scheme for people who are doing up derelict properties for the purpose of renting them, and those built prior to 2007. We've agreed that if somebody rents out a room in their house, it won't affect their social welfare entitlements or their medical card entitlements, and that's open to local authority tenancies as well. And we've also agreed, as I said earlier, giving local authorities authority to buy up to 1,500 homes where people are facing a notice to quit, and that will be a solution for a lot of people.
Mary Lou McDonald. Taoiseach, when you re-entered the office of Taoiseach in December, you said that housing would be your priority. And now your first major housing decision is to put thousands of renters at risk of losing their homes. With your eyes wide open, you intend to lift the eviction ban, knowing that this will spell disaster for so many. And it will mean people losing their homes. And it will mean some looking for homeless emergency accommodation that is not there. For others, it'll mean sofa surfing or moving back into the box room with of your parents' home with your children in tow. Either or. We are looking at a tsunami of misery again visited on our people. And now you cobble together measures or you reiterate schemes that aren't working efficiently or to scale as some kind of appropriate response. Well, Taoiseach, it is not. And you sound to me like somebody who has thrown in the towel and thrown renters to the wolves. You don't actually believe that these things can be solved, but they can. And to protect renters, we need an extension of the eviction ban and we need government pace and ambition. As a matter of fact, we need a new government. That much is evidently clear.
Deputy, as is so often the case, you seem to think that the solution to the housing crisis is just you being Taoiseach and your party being government. You put no solutions forward in your contributions, nor do you in your motion. And it seems to me that you see housing not as a crisis to be overcome or a problem to be solved, but as a political issue to be exploited. And there are 4 things you could do. There are 4 things you could do, Deputy, to help if you're interested in helping. 1, you could stop objecting to new housing. You've objected to 2,000 homes in your constituency alone. Your party has objected to 12,000. You particularly object to 1-beds because the people who live in them are transients, to use your language, and you particularly object to build to rent, even though we need more properties to rent. You could drop your opposition to Help to Buy and First Home. And a lot of first-time buyers know there's an election coming in the next 2 years and are starting to read about your policies. We had more first-time buyers in January than any month since records began in 2010. And they know the Sinn Féin is going to take away the Help to Buy and take away First Home, and they're concerned about that, and you should take that threat off their backs. And the 3rd thing you can do is you can stop threatening landlords, Deputy. Stop threatening landlords with increased restrictions and regulations and more taxes, because that's just going to cause more of them to leave, Deputy. And you can acknowledge, Deputy, that your plan to extend the eviction ban until the end of January will only do one thing. It'll make the situation worse then, but perhaps that's what you want.
No, we're way over time. We're way over time.